a pleasure to introduce you to the person who is behind this amazing program. He's my manager, and he's the head of Google Launchpad, the global program. So Roy Glasberg, he's going to be our final speaker for the summit. So please take your seat. Let's introduce him. Great. So just a few things, just a few words about Roy before we start, because really he's the person, and he's the reason why I'm here as well, so for him. So Roy is the founder and general manager of Google Global Accelerator, which is Google Launchpad Accelerator, which we've talked about, and Google's AI programs for startups. And I told you about Launchpad Studio as well, so that's another thing under his wing. In the last 3 years, he has built Google's global mentoring program for startups as global manager of Launchpad, scaling it to over 40 countries. Before joining Google, Roy was the director of business development at LivePerson and the head of business development and business solutions at Microsoft Israel. He has a vast experience in strategy formulation and implementation, working as a senior consultant for Deloitte and for Hay Group. Yeah. Roy holds four, that's the final touch now. Roy holds 4 university degrees. He hates when I share that with everyone, but I think it's something to be noted. Business management, software IP, and financial engineering from the IDC and Hebrew University. Roy's team includes his wife, Zohar, and their 4 daughters, and Chewy, their golden retriever. So please, warm welcome to our final speaker for today.
For making me go through that all day.
My pleasure.
So hello everyone. Welcome to Space. This is one of the exciting things we were able to do in the last couple of years. I joined Google 4 years ago, and we basically went into kind of uncharted waters, find the best way for Google to engage with startups around the world. The challenge in that is that, like any other tech company, we're very good at educating people about our technology and how to build the most awesome apps on Android and how to use machine learning and AI in our cloud platform. But we very quickly noticed 4 years ago that for startups, you need a different language and a different approach. To say it bluntly, I don't think startups really care about building the most awesome app on Android. They want to build the most awesome app that makes money, that evolves into a business that has a lot of happy users around the world. And that requires a big shift in the way we think, analyze, even measure our success. So that journey started with the first understanding that we need to focus on startup success as our metrics. So when we measure success for Accelerator, when we measure success for other programs, it's all about fundraising. How much money have they raised? How profitable are they? What's their user base, an increasing user base? Have they been able to enter new markets? And that's how we kind of measure our programs. During that journey, we had the privilege of working with a lot of entrepreneurs around the world who basically trusted us. And whenever somebody comes to the team, like Shiri and others, and like a startup coming to the program, they take a leap of faith. Time is not something people can afford. And when you come to a program like ours, especially when we're doing kind of the first iteration, it's all about trusting that we're going to get value out of this and this is going to be worth our time. So the fact that we have the Google brand behind us doesn't hurt to convince people and to get them to trust you, but the burden of proof is always on us in all of our programs, and that's how we kind of approach it. In the next, as long as it takes us, because usually the question time is long, I'll share with you a little bit of what we've been doing, what have we learned, and kind of lessons learned along the way from observing a lot of startups and helping them with their challenges. So the origins of Launchpad go back to Israel. It's a small country that is far away, 10 hours time difference. And we've been starting there about 5 years ago, trying to kind of experiment with working with startups, built a mentorship program, built a mentorship ecosystem of people around us who just wanted to take part of helping startups. That was a very good sandbox for us. One, as I said, it's 10 hours away. So whatever you do there stays there, and you can actually experiment and feel free that you have your own sandbox. But also, one of the unique things about Israel is that you have a very condensed startup ecosystem. So in a 5-kilometer radius, you'll find 90% or 95% of the Israeli startup ecosystem. All the mentors, strongest companies. I don't think there's one high-tech company in the world today that is global that doesn't have an R&D center there. And it's just overwhelming to see the level of innovation and the amount of startups that come out. So it's a great opportunity to experiment with a lot of things. After we've been running the program there, we've started piloting with that work somewhere else. We get a bunch of mentors around the world wanting to engage with us and help others. And we took the program to Berlin, Paris, Barcelona, then went to Bangalore, then went to Sao Paulo, and we found that the same structure basically works everywhere. Entrepreneurship is fascinating. Working with entrepreneurs is probably the best university you can go to in life today. And if you get to see a lot of ideas around you, that's probably the best way to come in, help when help is needed. So that was kind of the foundations. In total, we worked with, this is an old number, I think we're closer to 20,000 startups that we've been working with around the world. And we worked with about 5,000 mature startups. And by mature, we work with startups that raise 60, 80, 100, even $200 million. So these are companies. And that gave us a lot of opportunity to, one, experiment and learn. And we've made a lot of mistakes along the way. And we stayed true to the cause, and we stayed true to the fact that if we fail fast. But if we identified an opportunity and we're successful in delivering the value, we capitalize on that. And the team is sometimes frustrated that we have a lot of ideas and a lot of initiatives, and then you just kill half of them because you don't see the value, or it doesn't work, or it doesn't go in the right direction. But you can't work with entrepreneurs and startups unless you have the same DNA within your team. Otherwise, just giving talks and not doing the work. Let me share with you a few common mistakes that I've seen with entrepreneurs, and also that are relevant for us when we started off, because we see ourselves like a small, very small startup within this huge machinery called Google. We had a lot of theories and a lot of hypotheses on what it means to help startups and what should those programs look like. We weren't the first, and we won't be the last to build these kind of programs within corporates. But the best and only learning opportunity you have is when you work with your users. And any assumption that you have is good, because it means that you're actually thinking and try to solve for the problem. But if I look at any entrepreneur that I've met with, and I look at where I got these mind-blowing ideas and where my programs really improved, that was when I was sitting in a room with entrepreneurs and said, hey, leave the BS outside the room. Tell me the way it is. Do you get the value you need? Do you think we're missing on something? Do you think we can do something better? And keeping your investors close is important. Keeping your fancy boards that every startup starts with this presentation of, I have half of the world as my board members. These are all great people that will help you, but the people you should care about the most and keep closest to you will always be your users. They're the ones who are going to give it to you straight, and they're the ones who eventually can validate or disprove your product. No expert can do that for you. So that's kind of the main thing I would focus on. The second thing is that in communications and in situations, people say different things, and it's not that they don't want to help you, but you can't expect a user to be a mentor or an expert. They're just a user. Eventually they want to enjoy your product, they want to get the value out of it, and if they don't, they're not going to use it. So there's a huge difference between talking and interviewing and sending these long questionnaires and long asks for feedback, which have their value, but being able to look at your users and look at what they do is the most valuable feedback you're going to get from your users. There are a lot of products out there, a lot of startups that I've got to work with that provide quality assurance solutions on apps, on websites, by just looking at what the users do. And imagine that you're developing an app, and that app has a lot of features because you want it to be, I want to build a cool product and I want that product to be competitive. Which one of the features that I have on my app is the gold feature from a user and which ones are just nice to have. And it's very difficult to know. There are a lot of solutions out there that actually sit on the app, look at the user, and they can tell you, hey, they're pressing here, they're using that feature, they're not using that feature. This is the areas where they get confused or they stop the process. This is where it's streamlined. So observance is very, very important. Sorry for being old, but I'll give you some old examples. I think most of you have never got the experience of using this thing. This is called a Walkman. It has cassettes in it. That's how we used to hear music in the past. Sorry? Well, the funny thing is that it's coming back now. Walkman with the cassettes. Cassettes are coming back. The vinyl records is old news. They already came back. I wonder if they're going to bring those laser CDs who made no sense and they were as big as your trunk.
Yeah.
And you need to carry that huge thing just to play a movie at home. I don't think that would come back, but then, what do I know? So Sony and Walkman did a very interesting experiment. They got groups around the world and they asked them, what color do you want your Walkman to be? Because there was really no technology differentiation between one Walkman and another. There's the play, stop, rewind, and then that horrible moment when you have to take the cassette out and it's all tangled and then you need to find a pencil to fix it. So they all work the same. So people started being creative in that meeting. They said, hey, I want purple, and I want blue, and I want turquoise, and I want all that stuff. And then on the way out, they said, thank you for participating. Please pick up the device as you go out. And they had a bunch of different colors there, and everybody took the black. So if I was foolish enough to take the feedback and act on it, I'd probably spend a lot of money on doing all these variations, while at the end of the day, people would go to the store and do exactly that. So that's a great way of looking at it. But observing users is also shocking at times. I mean, we love what we do. We're passionate about what we do. That's why we do it. I have 4 daughters, so when I go to a teacher-parent conference, I can hear how my daughters are great. That's great. But if she has a bad word or somebody has a bad word to say about my daughters, that's going to be hell to pay. But that's the opportunity to hear. That's the opportunity to learn. So you need to really come open-minded. And I know on the tip of your tongue you want to say, yeah, I hear your feedback, but no, it's not interesting. Hear the feedback, do the exercise of actually listening to the full session or reading the full report or having that full conversation without participating in it. Just absorb it. Take it home with you. Think of why do my users get the experience? Why don't they like what I'm doing? Or why they only like one part of it over the other? And again, saying this, and I hear myself, and I'm like, yeah, but I didn't do that then. So it's a learning for all of us. But user feedback is critical, and it's that one-time opportunity that people will spend the time on making your product better. So the more open you are to it, the better the chances that you act on it and actually get value out of that. Third mistake that I love to see, and I've been guilty of that as well. I mean, we all sat at home and had the idea of, I'm going to change the world, and this is how I'm going to do it. And you know, when you see Airbnb or others tell the story of how they started, I couldn't find a room, or I wanted to rent my sofa, or I wanted to do something else. So I'm the user, I identified the problem. Now I'm going to solve for that problem by building a product. The moment that you prepare the first presentation for investors, that first presentation to get a co-founder, that first presentation just to put your ideas on paper, that moment you lost objectivity. From that moment you're no longer the user. From that moment you're no longer objective to what works and what doesn't. And you should be very careful in fooling yourself that you're representing the user as you go forward. The user is the user. He's the person that has a lot of options, and those users need to choose your product. And obviously you will choose your product. Obviously you'll convince people that that's the best product, but you're no longer objective. So it's really critical to lose the, hey, I'm the user because when I started this, I saw that need, and now I can provide the best feedback, or I can create the best direction. Another thing we see a lot, and that's where people love convincing you to spend a lot of money on advertising. And advertising is great, and actually advertising pays my salary. But getting users and getting a lot of users is only one part of the equation, and it's also a very risky one. What happens if you get a lot of users and your product is not there yet? Will they be open to make that mistake twice of using you once you do come back with a good product? Another thing that we need to think about is always remember that every startup and every company and every product has a back door. So when I examine startups that I want to choose for the accelerator, I don't only look at how many users they got and what is the growth of the user base. I also look at retention. I always look at time spent on app. Are the users staying there? Are they using more? Are they buying more from that platform? If they used to spend 10 seconds on average a day on the app, did that grow to a minute or two because they're seeing more value and they feel more connected and that gives them the value? Or did they just leave it on their device, they're never using it again, and then that number means nothing? So when you go to investors and when you measure your own metrics and KPIs, don't take the mere number of users as your measurement. Focus on what investors will ask you as a follow-up question. What's the retention? What's the time spent? What's the real value users are getting, and how can you validate that from what you're doing? Emotions is, well, for ladders at home, we talk a lot about emotions and what it means and what we do. And it's critical. It's critical because we want to feel things about what we do. I talk to my daughters, and when my eldest, she's the age that she's asking the hard questions of why do you do what you do, and explain to me how work is for you. We usually dive into that. I love what I do. I wake up in the morning and I don't work. I don't have a job. I go to build programs. I go to work with startups. It's fascinating. That's what I love to do in life, and I hope that when you grow up, you'll find a job that you're really passionate about. The same is about products. We don't need to have the best product in the world. We don't need to have the highest level of technology embedded into it and the best features in the world. We need to have a product that people love and want to use more than other products. And the emotional part of it is important. And the best example I always give to that, to kind of really go where I am today, is when I had tablets in the past, there were tablets. I used one and I used the other. But when I had my iPad Pro, that was precious. That was something you consider to be something you develop emotions for. If God forbid my iPad fell, I'll be like, no, I have to see that it's okay. The tablet fell, that was okay. That's the emotional tie you want to have between your users and your product. Today, it's great to see what's happening around Silicon Valley. You'll see a lot of examples of startups that once you enter their website and once they start talking about their product and the advertisement, they are searching for your heart. They don't go for the logic. Because if there's no logic, you're not going to use it. That's a given. But they want you to feel emotionally connected with the service, with the product, with what they do. Notice that on Amazon, one of my best examples for a retail company, every time you complain about something, they always end the service session with, are you okay? Are all your problems solved? Are you happy? They want to leave you with that positive emotional tie that you will come back next time, that you will want their services next time. Don't be afraid from reinventing the wheel. And I'm saying that with caution because you shouldn't always go to reinvent the wheel. But if you look at products in history, for instance, if you look at Android in the beginning, and if you look at the first iPhone, they didn't do another Nokia phone. They didn't do another Symbian operating system or a 10%, 20% increase better than the old operating systems. They've reinvented the way we interact with devices. What can we expect from our phones? My phone in my pocket is a gateway to the biggest knowledge base in the world, which is the web. When was the last time I used it as a phone? If I look at percentage of usage, when did we last use our phone as just phones? That approach of getting people what they want is critical in understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it, and sometimes being bold and saying, hey, that doesn't make sense. I mean, there's a company now called Lemonade in the fintech industry, and they're really looking at revolutionizing the way we interact with insurance companies. On the bad side, they basically made 90% of insurance workers irrelevant because they can automate a lot of the things. But the first thing they do is give the right service and give it immediately. And going to an insurance company which has to fund their product and saying, hey, 90% of your people are not relevant anymore is a scary thing to do when you go to insurance companies. I mean, I'm a VP, I manage thousands of people, and now you're telling me that I'm going to manage dozens? That doesn't make sense. But they went there nonetheless, and if at first people don't get what you want to do, or if people say what I love to hear, nah, that idea is crazy, it's never going to work, that's when I usually light my eyes and say, okay, I want to really understand this. This has the potential of being something that will revolutionize an industry and not necessarily be an incremental growth or just a little bit better of a service. When we look at the whole concept of MVP, MVP is a way of life. It's not a stage in a startup. That way of thinking of how do I fail fast, how do I prototype quickly, how do I validate quickly, is something that we work with companies that have raised 100K and $100 million. And it doesn't change, it never changes. I mean, yeah, I hope we all get to these high-tech companies, can think of a good example that make a lot of money, and then we can afford a lot of mistakes. But if you embed into the DNA of your company this thinking of we have to be efficient, we have to be fast, and we have to validate everything that we're doing very, very quickly, that is going to be the DNA of the company going forward. And I think that's a very important element, because there's always going to be a competitor on your right or on your left that can beat you in every given moment. And if you're not efficient, and if you're not focused, and if you don't move fast enough, and if it takes your team months to understand you're in the wrong direction, you're going to lose your market, you're going to lose your product, you're going to lose your company at the end of the day. So that's why MVP is what I see as kind of a way of life, and we implement it. One caveat though, since I built this presentation, I forgot to add, the world of AI and machine learning changed. The lean methodology requires a totally different way of thinking. It does not enable us to leanly develop and run fast, because these are heavy processes, labeling data, constructing the algorithms and all that. But still, there is a differentiation between my data and what I'm collecting and what I can leverage, and the implementation and how do I make sure that my users get the right value, and how do I make sure that I'm chasing the right market. So there's still validity for that there as well. Creativity is one of my favorite topics. So I moved here from Israel about 2.5 years ago, so I still consider myself to be new. I heard from somebody that there's a website that reports the most creative way somebody died that year. And I think America is probably the only place in the world you're going to find a website like that, but that's okay. So apparently a long time ago, somebody tried to clean their chimney and they couldn't reach. So what they've done is they decided, what he did, whether that person did, he decided that he will use an old World War II grenade and hold it to balance himself as with his other hand he's going into the chimney. And you can understand what happened later. Creativity can kill us, can kill our product, can kill what we're doing. And that goes back to the MVP approach and to thinking of, I want to get the value, I want to get the value out there as soon as possible, and I want to validate that my users are enjoying it and getting what they need out of it. Creativity, making it the nicest, perfect, most beautiful thing in the world will come, but it's definitely not our top priority before we reach that mark of product market fit, before we get to that point that the market signals back, hey, you're in the right direction, you're doing the right thing, we want you to continue doing that. At the same time, I've seen, in Israel especially, but in other locations of the world as well, where people run really quickly with a prototype and they expect the user's forgiveness for having a horrible user experience. Don't they get the logic behind it? Don't they get how brilliant it is? Or when was the last time they saw calculations done this fast? That's great. But eventually there is a reason why when you go to an Apple store, all of the products, and it doesn't matter if it's cameras, toys for kids, and phone accessories, look the same. They look slick, they look elegant, they're well designed, well packaged, to give you a seamless experience, because as a user, these are your standards today. And when you're launching your product is not compared with other startups at your stage. It is compared with the existing companies that already worked on their UX, already worked on their experience, already made those polishes. So the best, I would say, tip on that is find that small group of users that you can validate. But when you're going massively, when you're scaling, make sure that everything works, make sure that the experience is the right experience you want to get from your users and you want to give your users. It's not about the money. That's something that I think Silicon Valley is kind of giving the wrong education to the rest of the world. And as we are operating in 40 countries around the world, and a lot of them are emerging markets, I usually put that as the first slide when I do those talks on the other side of the world. Money does matter. Money is the fuel of our company. There are few rare cases where getting your user base and getting people to use your product is great and scalability is good enough on that end. But always think of the timing and always think of the opportunity to bring $1 from each user. To make sure that they're not only using it and enjoying it, but they're willing to put money out of their pocket. And again, it doesn't matter if it's $1, $10, or $100, but you can show to the investors and you can show to people around and to yourself, people are willing to pay for this. Now, it's very different from different countries around the world. Sometimes just downloading an app in some of the emerging markets costs a lot of money. So they can't just download apps like us all day and just take them out and download more. They don't have unlimited data. So cost can be translated in different ways around the world, but there's no better validation for an investor than I'm making money. And it doesn't matter if it's a small amount of money. I validated that my users are seeing this as valuable enough to reach into their pocket and put some money on this. 10 mistake is another way that I love to open some of the talks that I share around the world. And I usually ask the audience, like, who's in the startup business here? So who's in the startup business? Brave people. There is no startup business. We're building companies, we're building products. And that's important to see from day one. It's important for your vision. It's important for the aggressiveness of how you approach scaling and how you approach building a product and getting your user base. But a startup is the first step, and as human beings, we don't consider ourselves as learning how to walk. We're considering ourselves as growing up, maturing, running, and doing the other stuff that we want to do. The same for startup. You should think pretty early on not only the product and building the right team and being very efficient and executing, but also what are the core values of what you're building? What's the core value of your company? Now you're 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, 10, and you're going to be 100 and 200 if you're successful. And you want to make sure that that DNA continues. You want to make sure that you're building something that is scalable, that's something that's out there to last. I was invited to speak at a convention in Haiti 6 months ago, an amazing place if you haven't been. That was my first time. They're really kicking off their startup ecosystem. Everything is very early stage. That's a country where they have about 20% of electricity penetration. I'm not even talking about internet. At the same time, so many passionate young folks who want to change the world and want to build things and do cool stuff. So it was, when I come back there, I'm already committed to helping them and I'll do whatever I can to run stuff there and support. I was giving a talk, that was the only and probably the last time that when you'll see an invite to an event, it's going to be me and Ben Horowitz. And I found that very amusing. Share the laugh, it's funny. I don't think myself is important enough to be there, but when Ben Horowitz was giving his talk, they brought him on stage about 45 minutes late. And I don't think he liked that too much. And then he started his whole conversation by your behavior and how you run shop and how you run your business is not just efficiency, it's also the value of what the experience and what you are and who you are. So starting on time was his example of that sets the right rhythm. If you're efficient, you start on time, you keep to the schedule, you keep it professional, that's going to manifest through everything that you do beyond that. He also gave a very important talk about how to define your core values as a company. I don't think that's relevant when you're 2 people in the garage and kind of building your presentation at the first time, but that definitely becomes very important as you move forward. You will not see a lot of founders that survive the full founding cycle, that they founded the company and they remain the CEOs and scaled it to $1 billion company. Even in Google, we had to make changes in order to find the right people to lead the company, and many other companies as well. But there's nothing more important for you than what you're building. And if you're putting thought into bringing the most skillful people, also make sure that you're putting thought into bringing the people who have the same value set as you. There are a lot of companies that were broken, that were not successful, not because they didn't have a good product or a good concept. It's just that the team didn't match, then they didn't describe on what are our values, who do we want to be when we grow up. And that broke those companies, so it's definitely important to take care of that. This is not relevant for Silicon Valley, but it is relevant for the rest of the world, and I think there's a flip side to it. Every startup, except for special occasions like Israel, where you know what's the most beautiful thing about the Israeli market, is that we don't have one. With 8 million people, you can think of scaling a product and selling it massively. So we think global from day one. A lot of companies and a lot of products and a lot of founders are thinking locally first, let me build, validate, and then they're missing on opportunities where what they're building is actually relevant for other places in the world, for other markets around the world. And again, going back to what I said before, we don't have a lot of room for error, and opportunities are out there, and if we don't grab those opportunities, somebody else will. So we've seen amazing solutions come through our accelerator, where we had somebody from India sitting with somebody from Mexico City and somebody from Indonesia. And we said, you know, that solution actually can work in all these locations because their needs are the same, the users are the same, and the challenges they're facing are the same. So just to keep it in the back of your mind, building for Silicon Valley or building for North America is great, but there are a lot of companies who actually looked at other markets and saw other potential. I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm fascinated with emerging markets. We have hundreds of millions of people who will be coming online, who need a lot of services that they don't have today. And I think that's a fascinating green field for entrepreneurs to look at today. So not necessarily Airbnb for dogs or other jokes that we made in the past in North America, but actually, how do I change the lives of people where they need it, and using my expertise to do that and making a lot of money on the way. That's definitely a viable equation that we can consider as we're thinking of what we're building and how we're doing it. Before I get to questions, this is the last thing. I have seen so many mentors, and you're going to find so many programs around the world, including ours, including others. There are a lot of people who want to help. Some of them know how to help, some of them don't. In some cases, those who want to help and know how to help are not going to replace you in the driver's seat. They're not going to take your risks. They're not going to move in and manage your company tomorrow. So maybe that's a twist to everything I've said so far, but always take feedback for what it is. It's somebody caring, giving me advice, but I bear the sole responsibility of going home and deciding, do I act on it? Does that make sense for me? The beautiful thing about startups is that nobody can really write a big book for startups. Because startups is the ignition of an idea that changes and disrupts the existing economy and the existing way of doing businesses. So if we knew how to write the book, we all would be sitting at home and just enjoying it. But the beauty of entrepreneurship is that you're reinventing the world. Nobody can replace you in what you're doing. And I think it's admirable that people feel empowered to take those risks and to run forward and change the world. And it's your responsibility. It's pretty lonely sometimes. But there are a lot of people around there to help. There are a lot of programs around there to help. Always be mindful. Always double check. I come from the Israeli army, so we always had this saying about intelligence. That if you get intelligence from one source, it's questionable. If you get it from 3, 4 different sources, then that's something that you need to check its validity. So always double check. If you're getting a disruptive idea from somebody, doesn't mean it's wrong. But before you act on it the next day, because that person, has 50,000 followers on LinkedIn or something, go check, validate with other professionals. There's so many people around there that want to help. Just make sure you lead your ship the way you think you should lead it and get the right help. I think that's my end. That's some connection details that you can always contact me. But questions?
Thank you for your talk. Can you compare there differences, any differences you like, cultural, goal-oriented between, I hope you have a launchpad in France, and here, can you just use that as an example to see the differences?
Perfect. So when we're looking at cultural differences, I think the biggest gap I will find probably won't be between France and the United States. I think it will probably be between emerging markets and mature markets. Yes, the fact that you can't email somebody in France after 6 is challenging when you're running a startup. And the fact that employment laws almost prevent you from being ever able to fire somebody is also a challenge you have in Europe that you don't have in the United States. And I think that can be a little bit challenging for a startup to run fast. But I think the amazing differences I see when I look at emerging markets, and every 6 months we bring a group of the leading startups in emerging markets to come and work with us. And that experience of seeing people who, they grew up in Silicon Valley. They didn't grow up in an area where in every spot in this city you're going to find a cafe with a potential mentor that can help you. And more importantly, they haven't subscribed to any TechCrunch or anything else that will show them how many people were successful in their country before in building billion-dollar global companies that are really successful. These people are the pioneers of many of their startup ecosystems. That requires a very different way of thinking. They're thinking of money first. They're very quick to monetize because they know they can't count on follow-up funding. They really, and a lot of them do, a lot of them come with real problems they're trying to solve. So the social cause, I was amazed to see how much it's embedded in their DNA. When I work with entrepreneurs, let me think of what is the region that shocked me the most. I think Africa shocked me the most. I've seen so many entrepreneurs that come to me and want to work with me, but they're telling me, hey, don't help our startup. Think of how can you go back home and foster this startup ecosystem. Give more knowledge, give more expertise, so the others have a better baseline to start from and grow and run. Across all of the companies that came to Accelerator, you would not believe how many of these run fast, successful company leaders said, hey, we want in next time, but we want to be the mentors. We want in next time, but we want to take this knowledge and bring it back. And we had this small kind of panel with some of the mentors who've been with us from Class 1, and these were founders in Class 1. And they just showed us what they've done with the knowledge and expertise and the stuff that they got from us. They created complete syllabuses and websites and knowledge transfers and events and training modules based on what they've seen here. And obviously they took only the things that they thought were super critical. But that devotion to help and foster and make sure that others have a cleaner path or an easier path to go is a huge, huge, huge differentiator that I've seen, which kind of makes me really passionate about working with emerging markets in general. Sorry for the long answer. More questions? Yes.
Can you, in 5 points, I know there were 12 points, in 5 metrics, louder now, I think the people are back. 5 metrics that you look for when you accept the best startup from emerging markets.
Perfect. So, one, remember that we take round A+ companies. So they've raised between $3 and $5 million, up to $200 million, which is the biggest company we're getting for next class.
Also, only founded companies are...
So we have back in the day when we thought about this program, we had to make a lot of hard decisions. Those hard decisions were, which stage of the startups are we going to be able to affect the most? And we, as you can see, I take the Google brand and the Google connection very seriously. I actually see this as a huge responsibility, not just a great opportunity. So think about it that Google brings startups from Indonesia to Silicon Valley. For most investors here, that's the first time they're going to see a startup from Indonesia. Imagine that I'm getting okay startups or early stage startups that haven't reached Google product market fit yet, who haven't shown the impact yet. What's that going to change for the investors? Okay, just as we thought, and let's let them mature. Maybe in 10 years we'll invest. What happens if I bring a $200 million funding raised company from Brazil that radicalizes the fintech market. And the company can be successful anywhere in the world if it operates. That turns those investors to say, I'm missing out on something. So that's one reason why we take more advanced companies in our early stage. The second is we have a golden opportunity to learn. And what we're doing here is we're running a lab. So imagine 24 companies coming in. We analyze before they even land here, what are the challenges? We have a back and forth with the leadership team to make sure that we see things the right way. We hypothesize, we test, we throw every solution we have at them, we measure the impact, we record every mentoring session, which we analyze at night to make sure that the mentorship the next day is pinpointed to what we've identified and that we're not missing anything. And then you multiply that by classes and classes and classes. You're building a knowledge base, you're building a playbook that can help others. You can only achieve that with companies who have matured to the level of executing and reacting really, really fast. And also that creates a lot of very strong alignment with that leadership, because basically a $200 million company would not come to this program if they don't see a clear value for it. They don't need the Google brand, they don't need the affiliation to a program, they need support and they need somebody who understands their business. So that takes the whole program to a different level. One of the things that we are looking at into next year, and thanks to our CEO, we already have the first opening for that, is opening localized programs that will deal with the earlier stage, that will basically be able to bring the knowledge that we're building here and share it on the ground, train mentors and train startups. The first localized program will be opening, if I'm not mistaken, in March in Lagos to cater for all of Africa. And as my team is always afraid, that just opens the appetite to do more and open more locations around the world, because I think we have a responsibility and an opportunity to do that. Going back to the metrics of how we measure, we build a baseline for every country, for every industry. So having 100 million users is great in some countries, well, great in most countries. Having 100,000 users, when you launch a new product in India, for instance, might not be that big of a number, but if you launch that product in Israel, it will be fascinating and amazing. Also, if your product is a B2B and not a B2C, if you have 3 customers, paying customers, and each one of them is spending you $1 million a month, that's great validation that you're doing right. At the same time, if you're a B2C and you have 3 users, then we have a problem. And then you need to look at that specific segment, if it's healthcare, if it's transportation, food, all of that. It's very easy for us. We have a little bit of data at Google, so we can build a baseline and compare with other companies that are successful. And we usually look at the top 5% performing companies when we bring them on board. Money raised is a good validation. Growth plus retention is good validation.
A couple of questions about users, involving users along the way. You said a small user group. Can you say what small means to you?
I can say what small means to me, but I have 4 daughters, so I don't know if that gives like a standard for everybody. I can say that to be a small, cool family. It all depends on what you're doing, what stage you are. When you're introducing your product for the first time, a couple of professionals would be great to get their eyes to it, work on the feedback, improve, then go to a few hundreds, then go to a few thousands. One of the beautiful stories that I always remember is when I heard the founders of Waze tell the story of how they went through and how many times they validated and fumbled. And sometimes they validated with tens of thousands of users, and that cost them a lot. They actually saw an increasing number of people who just removed the app and didn't want to use it, and it's very difficult to get those people back. And then they start working on more close, selected group of users that they shared the new version or did A/B testing to see what works and what doesn't, and that really sped their growth and kind of building the right product. So it all depends. And unfortunately, I would say it all depends on many of the questions that you asked.
The second question has to do again with users. If you have a really dedicated group of users who are there for you for your MVP, for example, is it worth keeping them as potential users to get feedback along the way as you iterate?
So keeping them is a good question. I don't know if you can keep them, but if they're there, that's awesome validation. So I think for the early stages, if you have, so think about it from Google's perspective or any other company. We have a core of developers around the world who, for developers, sometimes technology is religion. So I will work with that company, or I'm fascinated by the values of what that company is doing, and I'm going to continue learning and doing that. Those folks are awesome in multiple layers. One, yes, they provide you with direct feedback. Two, they're also your advocates. They feel as if they're part of something greater. So they will go around, they will talk to other users, they will be in the different forums. They're going to be on avenues that you're not there, that you're not aware of. What is the discussion around my product right now, and who leads that discussion? So in any case, whatever you do, if you have a group of devoted users who are there, find ways to keep them happy and keep them close. But put one thing as a caution. Those who consider technology as a religion are very forgiving to mistakes. And there will be a point of time where you want to test, when you want to get reliable feedback. That's a situation where having people who've been with you for so long lose objectivity, and I'm not sure they're going to be telling you kind of direct as it is, that competitor is doing a better job, or I think you're missing out on this part of your product or your offering.
Thank you, good point.
One more question.
Yeah, here. Yeah.
So what kind of startups do you look for in the Accelerator in terms of sectors, type of technologies, and
Perfect. So the more we talk about the questions of what we look for, the more we try not to answer them. Remember that the mission is to change the chances of startups in the emerging markets to be successful, build a whole ecosystem around it. If you go into a program like this assuming you know the challenges and assuming you know the relevant segments, you've missed on half of your opportunity to really influence. One of the things that I love about our team is that we learn all the time, and we're always amazed by how much we didn't know before. But with every class and every program we run, we're also amazed by how much we still don't know and need to find out. So in the Accelerator, my best example is I have a co-founder who sits back in Israel, and we did the selection for class 1. And we go back and forth, and we invited a lot of cool, smart people to the table, and we analyzed a lot of the startups. And then one day I see that in preparation for today's talk, we have a company in the fish industry. Fish industry, yes. So I picked up the phone, and I called the person who's working with me, and I'm like, are you crazy? Where's the technology? What kind of value are we going to give? How did you even find these people, and what are we going to do with them in this program? Apparently, that was a company called eFishery that solves for basically one of the biggest challenges we have. How are we going to feed people 20, 30 years from now? They're automating fish farms using IoT and machine learning in the back end. They're a fascinating company that opened up a huge window of opportunity for me to think about things that I didn't even think about before that were relevant. And do remember, we're sitting in Silicon Valley. We're not objective to what are the real challenges in countries around the world. And if we assume so, we're missing on the point. But when you see all these opportunities and you're open to embrace those opportunities, that's when you really start to learn, and that's where you become impactful. eFishery has become one of the most successful companies that went for our program. I can tell you that investors from Silicon Valley and tech companies and tech groups from within Google and outside of Google have already reached out. We've got to work with them, we've got to learn from them. But that's only one example. We have 111 companies as alumni. 3 of them died, which is something I always mention whenever we look at the stats, because we did mess up 3 times. But we had 4 exits, which is huge for emerging markets. We had $360 million raised in funding post-program, which translating emerging market money to Silicon Valley money is between about 5x or 10x the money. We had 1,000+ increase percent of average increase in revenue and in user base across the portfolio. And the most important thing is that we learn what, and we're still learning by the way, what are the real challenges developers have in emerging markets. And when folks at Google and in other companies, because as I've said, we're open and we have about 150 mentors from Silicon Valley working with us across any cool company. You can think of Airbnb, Uber, Pinterest, the head of R&D from Intel. This is a learning opportunity for them because when we're building products in Silicon Valley, we can't assume bandwidth. We can't assume they're using the newest phones. We can't assume that the users are all fluent in English and they all can log in using their Facebook account. Not mentioning G+. But these are things we take for granted. Why? Because that's how we operate. And if we'll continue building platforms with that ignorance, we're not going to serve that huge potential of the market that is coming online, that is using, learning, growing, and we might find ourselves out of the competition one. Silicon Valley, North America is a great market, but the numbers are there, the potential is there, and if we're not smart enough to connect and help them, they'll be successful. We're just speeding that up. But the more we are aware of these challenges, the more we have those interaction points, we can build better products that can really provide the right value and solve the real problems this world can solve. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, before we leave, I mean, we need to I know you've been asking me a lot of questions about how to keep in touch and how, how we're going to communicate afterwards.
And videos, how to get the videos of the session.
And everything you're gonna get. So I wanted to make a few announcements, but before I do that, this two-day summit was about getting a lot of tools and information, and I'm sure we got a lot of information in the past 2 days, but also igniting conversations about diversity and equality and inclusion in our products and as in the tech industry in general. And I would really love to hear from you, just to take a few minutes. Just raise your hand if you want to share a meaningful either connection that you made with another person or a session that was important to you. So I'd just really love to hear one or two examples of that. Just raise your hand.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Schillenberger. I didn't get a chance to meet everyone, but all those that I have met, I really felt like I made a good connection. There's Anna Chu, are you still here? Well, she's in AR, and we just yesterday completed a Kickstarter campaign that we've been working on, and we closed it successfully, and it's for this product, which is it turns your smartphone into immersive smart binoculars. And we have an opportunity to use AR. So I'm very excited about connecting with Google on the AR Core.
I actually shared this with Brent. What you guys did in the moderated session, I don't know if you spoke to the speakers before or not, but usually in a male-oriented conference or anywhere, even when I speak, I've done that mistake. We talk about the products, we talk about technology, we talk about everything. I don't hear personal journeys, and it was wonderful hearing the personal journeys of a lot of folks who came out here today. So kudos to you guys.
I'll share. I ditto exactly that. The personal journeys, I've only heard them at like Wisdom 2.0 and mindfulness conferences where the person gets up and does their journey. So thank you a lot for that. And I personally noticed that I feel great. I don't always feel that great in a conference. 2 days when I'm the only woman, so thank you.
You got the prize.
One
Thank
word.
you.
Oh, you got the prize.
And you got the prize. That's great. Okay, last one.
Just one. Thank you for the party. It was a 2-day amazing party.
Great. Well, then, I have to say that, I sent you a feedback form last night, and I'm going to send you a feedback form today, and it really would mean a lot to me, and also to the program to make it better for future entrepreneurs as well, if you can share your feedback with us. So about communications, early on Monday or Tuesday, beginning next week, we're going to share a few communications ways with you. One is a Google group And that's basically an email Google group, and you can all reach each other there. That's the first thing. The second thing is we're not going to share your personal information with anyone, and that is why I'm going to share a spreadsheet with you that you can fill in your contact information. So if you choose and you want people to reach out to you, please fill out that information in the spreadsheet. So that's the second thing. Another thing, we're excited. Great. Another way is a Slack channel that I'm going to share with you. And we are going to, very encouraged here. I'm going to stay here forever. Great. And then the last thing is we are going to consider opening other channels as well for you. We got a few suggestions that are really great. So we are going to do that. And all the updates will be in the email that I'll send on Monday or Tuesday. Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick announcement if we're sharing channels and ways to connect. So for entrepreneurs, it's a really long and lonely process. And a group of female entrepreneurs and I meet every month, once a month, for real talk, like real support, like really sharing like what you can't really share with your company, your friends, and for the lonely journey. So I can add that to an offer for you guys.
That would be great, and we'll also always have a room for you here if you want to do it here. So this would be your home for that.
Really quick to add time to that, I run a mastermind group as well, so we're always looking for new members. It's about 5 to 8 people.
So you also asked me about photos and how to share that, so I'm going to share that on Monday and Tuesday as well. So photos and a video, we will have a recap video, and the next Launchpad Female Founder event if you want to know and join us. So we'll notify you before the next summit, so you can join us again for the next summit. We are planning on hosting another mentorship cafe, but it will be like an evening, so you can come in an evening, probably 6 p.m. We're going to tell you when that's going to be. I know that mentorship cafe was super helpful, and you got a lot of information from that. And we're going to have more evening meetups as well to come. So yeah, I'm going to be here for a few more minutes if you have any other questions. Yes.
Don't you think she has the best eyes that smile?
Do you think we're in a very nice time? And that's an announcement? Sure.
Hi, I just launched girlgroup.com 2 days ago, and I'm looking for help to get the buzz out. It's a smart, sexy site for modern lovers, and if you go to signup.girlgroup.com and sign up, you'll be entered to and eligible to win a $100 Amex gift card for Black Friday. So that's signup.girlgroup.com, and I appreciate your help in sharing the information and getting out to all of your friends. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking 2 days out of your week. So happy Thanksgiving and holidays.